I'm so good at game development. People are having so much fun with my game.
Your game is boring!
Really? I'm a game developer, and my game is boring. I'm currently making a 2D recreation of the Backrooms, which is a creepypasta that blew up like 2 years ago. You guys liked it, so I uploaded more and created an awesome community that loves every aspect of the game. No. Don't get me wrong, the visuals and atmosphere look cool, but actually playing it is equivalent to a 10-minute long walking simulator. In my defense, this is the work of a 15-year-old trying to procedurally generate the Backrooms. Now though, I'm a 16-year-old. Actually 17 because this video took too long to make, with experience and handy tools like 𝗗𝗏𝗦𝗜𝗖𝗥𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗏 under my belt. Seeing that this is like my 3rd time reworking my game, actually making it fun can't be that hard, right? So when tackling the problem of fun levels, we need to figure out why my old level generation system was boring. So I did some investigating. 2 years ago marked the start of my level generation journey, where I used this strategy.
Step 1. Spawn a random tile for random rotation. Step 2. Create connection point. Step 3. Spawn a random tile. Step 4. Rotate the tile. Step 5. Remove these connection points. Step 6. Ew, it doesn't work.
Ow, that's true. Anyways, the first problem with this system is its repetitiveness in level design. Spawning a bunch of connecting tiles are cool from a coding perspective, but they make the gameplay tedious when these kinds of tiles are the only thing you traverse. My original solution to this was to
expand my tile generation with group tiles.
These were bigger tiles that could break up the gameplay through custom rooms, like the pitfalls or a boss fight. But while one problem was fixed, 2 bigger ones were created. You see, developing this group tile system is the opposite of subscribing to 𝗗𝗘𝗦𝗦𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗡 games. It's not easy. Littered with bugs and obscure systems. Progress on the project dramatically slowed down as new levels took exponentially longer to make. And because of the scale of this new system, along with a problem that I'll explain later, lower-end devices like web browsers and phones cannot handle the processing power it took to generate big groups of tiles. Despite my best efforts, which even included a rework of the entire game, the bugs were never ending. Until
least productive day in game development.
Unity has to know this, they just don't care.
This is the thing that, like, Unity was the thing. The Unity Fallout gave me permission to rebuild my game in a brand spanking new engine, where I can fix these issues once and for all. Alright, so I've just created a giant plan using 𝗗𝗏𝗦𝗬𝗓, which is like a digital whiteboard, and let me take you through my thinking, because it's a lot. So I started by analyzing the first level of another fantastic Backrooms game, Escape the Backrooms, and noted the different actions you need to take to beat the level, like assembling a ladder, opening a door with a key, and crossing the pitfalls, which you can see with my beautiful drawings. This shows that I need to vary up the gameplay in my game using different mechanics in distinct rooms, like the group tiles, which I've mentioned before. With this knowledge, I created another subboard to figure out how to put my research into a level generation algorithm. Once again, my 2 biggest problems are lag and scalability. And to solve the former, I decided not to make my world infinite. It's cool from a coding perspective, and maybe I can use it as a different game mode in the future, but for the main gameplay, I'd rather make the levels shorter and have more variety. I'm gonna do this by starting with a pre-generated grid of tiles, and then simply altering the tiles that are spawned instead of creating new ones. Then, instead of spawning regular tiles before group tiles, we're actually gonna spawn the group tiles first. This ensures that I can control the pacing of important rooms in the level, because it would be weird the algorithm spawns you next to an important dungeon in one playthrough, and then that same dungeon is on the other side of the map in another. Now, this is great and all, but remember that problem I mentioned with lag? Well, here's what I mean. Alright, Mr. Chair, you beat my FNAF game on the hardest difficulty, which y'all better subscribe for, but I wonder if you can beat this game.
Position the vertices so that no 2 lines cross. Let's go on to 6, we're on 5, 8, oh no.
Oh, you have 1 left. Similar to how Chair is struggling to make these lines not overlap, a big problem with my algorithm are overlaps. How do we ensure that group tiles don't overlap with one another? I could just simply check and respawn the dungeon if there's an overlap, but that feels slow because I would have to check all these positions and then delete them. Optimization is important because we're putting this game on low-end devices, and we can't waste time checking all this data for something that won't spawn. Not to mention that this system is similar to my previous system, which had a lot of problems with scalability. 20.
I believe I'm on one. I can't be screwed over. If I beat 20 D mode, I can do this.
You're so close. Come on! No! So I kept researching article after blog post after algorithm until... Oh! You get it?
I did it, guys!
You got it! I got an idea. There's a Wikipedia article about a heuristic algorithm called force-directed graph drawing, which uses forces to simulate the motion of edges and nodes in an aesthetically pleasing way. I don't know what I just said, but it looks like this. To ensure that dungeons don't overlap with one another, we can use the physics engine to naturally separate them. Instead of building a messy overlap checking system from scratch, we can use Godot's already optimized engine to create separation. Not only would this reduce lag because Godot is an already established engine with optimized code, but it would also increase scalability as I don't have to focus on the spawning logic for each dungeon. Better yet, we can use repulsive forces like those of electrically charged particles to customize the amount of separation between each dungeon, similar to how magnets of the same charge repel each other. Now that we have dungeons, we can connect those dungeons via hallways, like those found in Pipe Dreams, via landscapes, like those found in level 94, and most importantly, via a maze, like those found on the very first level. And because I'm a psychopath, I pseudocoded every little piece. I spent a month on this, and if it weren't for Milanote, I would have to spend more time making a messy and ugly document where I wouldn't be able to diagram little things or iterate on my algorithms. They made this whole plan and explanation possible, and y'all better use this thing with the link in my description if you're looking to make a game yourself, because they're just a lifesaver. And now that I finally have every little piece of this game planned out, well, we just gotta make it. Come on, how hard could it possibly be? I just spent a bit of time transferring my pseudocode in Milanote to Godot, and when I mean a bit of time, I mean 2 freaking hours. But now, we should see dungeons in the shape of squares naturally separate. My forces are literally Nan. What is Nan? What? It's a game dev video, isn't it? Eventually, all of them are gonna repel each other. As you can imagine, we can add pretty cool dungeon generation to our game that we can then connect. However, if I rerun the simulation, as you can see, the dungeons never decelerate, so it could just go on infinitely. I don't want that. I want some way for the dungeons to slow down. At first, I tried to apply frictional force by using this equation, but the dungeons, for some reason, go the opposite way. Then, I tried to apply this linear velocity, and it just stays still. So I've been looking for a solution for the past few freaking hours until there's a freaking damp variable, and it just works. Well, after that fiasco, I made my dungeons, actually dungeons, by flattening them to the tile map. I also included entrances to our dungeons so the player can walk in them and added randomly generated positions in our dungeons. So every time I reload my scene, we're gonna get something different. Depending on how close they are in their initial spawn, the forces applied to them might be really strong that they literally escape the boundaries of the map, or really weak where the dungeons are really close together. And because of this random dungeon placement, the pacing from each playthrough, it's gonna be really inconsistent. And remember, it would be weird the algorithm spawns you next to an important dungeon in one playthrough, and then that same dungeon is on the other side of the map in another. And I think to counteract this, I need more fine control over the positions of my dungeon. So I added this line of code, which makes the dungeon spawn equidistantly from one another, which gives me control of how far apart I want the dungeons to be. Now that we have our dungeons, we need to connect them using a maze, like those found on the very first level. So I started by... we've generated an F. That may not look that impressive, but it was the first step towards making a fundamental part of the maze. The path. According to Google, a maze is a network of paths through which one has to find a way. Therefore, if we could generate an F, we can also generate a path like this. And then if you can imagine, maybe here's a dungeon, here's a dungeon, here's a dungeon. This maze will connect the dungeons together. It'll be as if they're traveling in the Backrooms itself. So now that we have one path, we just need more paths to fill out the rest of these tiles. Let's head at it. Ah, what is that error? Oh! We gotta fix these empty tiles. Yeah, okay. If you follow a path, it just leads to a dead end. My final step is to connect the paths. No! What happened to that one tile, bro? Yes, fixed it. Let's go, baby. Now we gotta combine it with our dungeons. Now, I know you guys still might be confused, like, this doesn't really look like the back room. Well, first of all, let's say I place a player sprite over here. You can imagine yourself trying to navigate the walls, the liminalsness, the insert complicated English word here of the backrooms, right? And more importantly, the game isn't just a walking simulator, because as you can see, we have these little dungeons that spawn. Now, I know they don't look like dungeons right now. We're gonna work on that. I think my next step is to make this maze a little more forgiving, because what if you walk into a dead end like this one? There's no way to escape. And the reason for this is because we generate
what's called a perfect maze. That means that from any one point on the map, there is one path to any other point on the map. Once we've generated the maze and we know everything is connected, we can go back and randomly remove some extra walls in between some of the additional tiles.
By the way, subscribe to Kids Can Code. This guy makes awesome tutorials. Anyways, after a few attempts at coding this system, we have a lot of open space, and the reason for this open space is because in our dungeon resource, our open dead end chance is set to a really high value at 0.9. That means there's a 90% chance dead ends are gonna be opened up. If we put this to something like 0.5, we should see that as you can see, it works first try, and now there's multiple ways to get through the maze. There's more customizability, which means we can recreate the vibe of the backrooms more. We can actually get started working on the first freaking level. It's been like 2 months since I last uploaded a video. So I've just added the player. Yo, we're going. Okay, let's scale this guy down, I think. Now we're roaming the backrooms over here. Graphically, the game still looks like absolute freaking garbage, but thankfully, I had a trick up my sleeve.
Pseudo-3D.
In my last devlog, I explained pseudo-3D as faking 3D depth into a 2D game, like these walls. So I separated my walls into sprites and perfectly recreated the effect. Look at that, dude. Obviously, we have a gray background. That doesn't look too good. But once we put a ground background like this... Oh, that's so weird. Oh, that's really weird. It's the backrooms, baby. Now, having a cool looking wall is cool, but it serves no purpose if we can move through it. So to stop players from seeing through solid objects, we have to revisit an old enemy of ours. In my second ever devlog of this game, I said that
This mechanic hides parts of the levels that you shouldn't be able to see, keeping the horror of not knowing what's behind the corner.
Yo, what were my edits back then? Anyways, this mechanic quite literally slapped me in the face the first time I tried to implement it. And now that we're trying to remake it in a new engine, you gotta wonder if it'll be as difficult. Thankfully, 𝗗𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗥𝗕𝗨𝗧𝗜𝗍 already has a built-in lighting system that might do this for me. So I followed this tutorial and... Yeah, I don't think that worked. Oh, it worked! Oh my god! Wait, what? Sometimes they work, but like on this wall, for example, they don't. I can add a node called canvas modulate. It will darken everything so that we can simulate dark lighting. Oh, these yellow walls are still very bright. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that is slightly terrifying, but really freaking cool. But there's a problem. One of the most recognizable parts of the backrooms are its yellow walls, and as you can see in this clip, those walls are very hard to see. But Juju, I thought you just made the walls bright! And yes, that's true, Dirt Man. But the problem is all the walls are bright. Because we're using a tile map, all of these walls are in a single node, making it difficult to make some of the walls bright and other walls dark. My initial solution was that instead of the light occluder being on the wall, I need it to be past the wall. Okay, just did nothing. Nice. Oh, I think I understand why. It's because there's 2 walls connected here, isn't there? For context, each wall you see is actually comprised of 2 tiles. Therefore, when I try to apply this light occluder outside of this tile, it also applies to this tile, meaning the occluder would still block the vision of our wall. I tried experimenting with my FOV shader a bit more to solve this, but eventually settled on this effect. Except now my backrooms are way too dark. We don't have the fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, so what I've done is create a spawn light function. What it should do is spawn lights on all of these tiles. Whoa. Ooh, infinite power! I just don't think the need for this is necessary, I can probably just get away with the player having a light. So I settled with this prototype and shelved this problem for the time being. So, after giving up on the FOV system, which I spent like 15 hours on, I need to work on making the dungeons for our game. Starting with, what are the pitfalls, you may ask? Well, it's basically a peculiar room with a bunch of, well, pits. I don't know what else you expected. In my Unity version of the game, it has this really nice parallax effect to create the illusion of depth. It's similar to the pseudo 3D system we created for our walls, but I made it, so it's a lot worse. What I need to do is recreate this effect. So I made a quick prototype, and my plan now, tweak this, and then we can actually move on to putting this in the level. I got the smallest pitfall in the world, bro. Why? It's not perfect yet because I need these pits to actually be constrained to like the square. What is that? I'm blinded by the light. I know what I'm doing for life. I spent my entire spring break on this. I love game development. So now that I finally have my Pitfalls dungeon in place, I took the creative liberty of mapping out all the levels that you guys want. One of the coolest features I want to add to my game is non-linear level progression. Let's say you go to level 0. The exits lead to level 27, level 1, level 13. What's level 13? Oh, okay. It's just like it's from the 1920s. And then, oh, maybe you go to level 14, or you can go to level 45, or go to level 909. Like,
You can choose your own adventure book.
so what I did was I created this.
Is that a dude? It's like a web of just
Levels that I can use to diagram transitions and create other dungeons. And as a side note, I actually let some people in my Discord server edit the level map, and they've been going ham at adding the levels they want to see in the game. I especially want to thank Rambin for including all of these wikis and transitions here, and Millinote for making such a wiki possible. It's actually really cool to collaborate with your friends and see their drawings in real time. So once again, if you want to make projects like these ones, click the link in the description because this tool is freaking awesome. Seriously, do it. Anyways, the dungeons I want to include for this devlog are the Manila Room, which is a small room that can be used as a save point, and Inundation, which is also known as the Flooded Backrooms. So what I did was I duplicated my Pitfalls dungeons and added different kinds of graphics onto them to make it a little more unique. As you can see, we got this nice little gradient going from the normal backrooms to the flooded backrooms. Maybe I can add like a door sprite here or something that can signify that you're entering a different level. And here is the Manila Room. Now the idea with this is that I actually wanted to make a ceiling here that the player can go under. I think this makes a really good transition. So if you go from the normal backrooms to the Manila Room, make it feel like a continuous game. And with my 2 dungeons now in place, it was time to add some items to finally make our game a little more fun. I first wanted to add an obstacle that requires an item from one of these dungeons to bypass. So taking some inspiration from Async Laboratories, I created a wooden board and slapped it on my level. Of course, we need some way to break this board, so I spent some time creating a beautiful looking hammer sprite over here. I put it into Godot. If you go into it, would y'all look at that? Hammer X Backrooms. If we're in range of the door and you left click, it breaks the wall. This is revolutionary technology, boys. But while this talk of hammer and board is cool, we're forgetting a really important part of my game, and it may be the guy in every thumbnail of this series. In case you forgot, the bacteria is the first enemy in our game that chases you as you try to escape level 0. Now before, I had the bacteria spawn when you wander far enough in the level, but now that we have items like a hammer, I think it would be a lot cooler to spawn the bacteria whenever you pick up the hammer. Oh, he's chasing you! He's going at Mach speed, except he's running into every single wall. Bam! We break the wall. He can't get through here. And now you can go through the pitfalls and you can go into habitable zone. However, the bacteria is still pretty easy to dodge because you can see the bacteria anywhere in your view. This means we need to return to our old enemies. This time, instead of using Godot's built-in lighting, we're gonna generate meshes to get the result we want. So I did way too much research and eventually stumbled upon this article about how we can generate a mesh that represents what the player can see. So after doing a bit of research, I deduced that we first need a circle. Who took a slice out of my circle? Now that we have a circle, we can send a raycast from the center of the circle to each point to place our point on the edges of the level's walls. Using this, and way too much freaking debugging, we have this. It might be kind of hard to decipher what you're looking at right now, but essentially the white parts of the game demonstrate what the player can see, which means we can cover up the parts the player can't. And while this is progress, the walls are outside of this region, meaning they would still be dark. Since we're using a mesh though, we have a lot more customizability in how we can shape our view cone. And eventually, I came up with having 2 raycasts now. So I have 1 raycast until it hits a wall, then I send out another raycast until it hits a ground tile. Now, if I make everything but this white black, we'll still be able to see the walls, which is the exact same effect we had before. And the final step is going to be to make everything else black, which thankfully wasn't too difficult to make. What is this? Why is my game in a tiny corner when I start? And then why do I just get sucked into a black hole, man? I love shaders. Look at it. Look at it. I want to do something to make this guy look a little more special, which involves making
particles using
𝗗𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗥𝗕𝗨𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗏
particle system. A great system for making.
Here's what it looks like, and I'm pretty happy with the effect, which means it's finally time to iron out the last pieces of our game. Starting with, if I get jump scared by this bacteria, I'll play a jump scare, and then I'll reload the scene. I also brought back our fan favorite almond water, and I've created this dungeon with a bunch of these pillars similar to this room in Kane Pixel series, and inside of these pillars is the almond water. Nice thing about almond water is that I click, you get a speed boost. So one thing I've changed with my game is this pitfall. So before this used to be a row of 3 pitfalls, but now we have this big pitfall that the player can't pass through. Using the same method to create my other dungeons, I've created this little dungeon where you can see a piece of wood. If I pick up the wood, perfectly it's our player. Our player is comfortably carrying our piece of wood. And now we have this giant pit that we totally can't go around. If you click, would you look at that? It creates this awesome little board that the player can walk through, which helps vary the gameplay to make it not a walking simulator. Using the same method, I revamped the manila room with some brand new furniture and added an item that will help you get to the full room. A freaking diving helmet! So I created a helmet sprite and was supposed to put it in the manila room, but then I noticed that my player wasn't colliding with my manila room, which is apparently an obscure bug with my pseudo 3D system. So I calmly fixed the bug and lived happily ever after. What is this? What am I doing? One of my favorite aspects of game dev is polishing. Small features like sound effects and a menu can really multiply the quality of a game without having to put in much effort. And in this case, one of these changes include a subtle screen shake. I used the screen shake to animate the bacteria's jump scare so that it actually looks like it's scaring you, and added some sleek animations to our entity. Remember this gradient in our water dungeon? Well, it doesn't exactly look like water, so I followed this tutorial and added some particles using 𝗗𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗥𝗓𝗡 particle system. Hole. And put it in our water dungeon, so you better get that diving helmet if you want to go to the pool rooms. Every good game has an iconic theme song attached to it, so I employed my usual method of randomly placing notes in GarageBand until... this sounds like it's made by a 2-year-old. A little hack I've learned is that along with sound effects, black cinematic bars make everything more intense. So I tried adding some to the scene. You hear those dark synthwave, I don't know what you call it, in the background? It's so much more atmospheric, so much more cinematic. And this is a dead end. I also tried experimenting with more shaders. So I found this radial blur shader, which as you can see makes a radial blur, and I tried to apply it. Ah! What is going on? Oh, it looks like those CSGO montages from like 2013. I added sound effects to all of the items in the game. For some final polish, I decided to spice up my almond water with some shaders and particles. Woo! And after 4 months of procrastinating, we have the first prototype of our first level done! So, let's see if it's any fun.
Backrooms 2D.
The thing is called Substitute.
Alright, let's go. Ooh, this is clean. The 3D. Oh my god.
Yeah.
This is crazy. Oh, the smoke in the background as well.
Godot's particle system. A great system.
Kind of lagging for me.
I hear water. No way. Is that the pool rooms?
Oh wait, you talked about this. I needed a hammer.
Ooh. Oh, you pick up items now? What does this do? Is this almond water?
I mean,
Okay, it's almond water. I got it. I thought it was gonna last longer. I was expecting to like run through the whole hallways, but
Table?
that's my epic attempt at making a diving helmet.
It should be bigger.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh. There goes my head.
it's back. Yeah! Oh. Oh god.
Let me have my pool rooms in peace, bro. Come on.
Run!
No.
Run!
If I die, I swear to God.
Dude, the bacteria guy is like, yo, Nathan, you haven't.
Oh my gosh, Oh my dude. gosh.
Yes, get in! Get in! Yes! Let's go!
Oh,
And
but
then,
now I need to see what happens if I get to the pitfall.
yes! Oh my god, why the lag?
Go! Yes! Let's go!
What is your feedback?
Takes a long time. But that's a
Definitely.
feature.
Definitely feels more like a complete polished game than the first one, but I think once this one has the same amount of content as the last one, it will be like really cool.
I rate this game a hammer out of 10, so put about 11 hammers up there on the scale.
And I've been meaning to ask you this question. Is it fun?
Yeah, it is fun.
Woo! Take that, dirt man. Take that.